Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And we have a returning guest today who appeared back in November 2020, which is over two years ago, which is episode 102. Mike Battersby, who is the chairman and MD of Maelgwyn Mineral Services Limited, otherwise known as MMS, a privately owned limited company. It's establishing itself as a world leader in the development and implementation of innovative, cost-effective technologies and processes in the field of mineral, chemical and waste processing. Mike has a background in mineral processing and started the business over 25 years ago, developing technology that can achieve significant environmental benefits in terms of reduced energy and waste for operations. The company has certainly grown significantly to what it has done today. And Mike's going to give us an update on what's been happening over the last few years since we last recorded an episode. So that's welcome, Mike, to the podcast. How you doing, Mike?
Great, thank you, Rob. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah,
it's been a long 2.5 years, really. A lot of things have happened in that time, which, well, was going on at the start when we talked last time we did the first podcast. But you'd thought they'd have sorted itself out before they did.
Yeah. And hopefully things have been sorted out by now. But there's always a few things that still obviously affect our industry. So obviously those that didn't listen to the previous episode, which I encourage you to go back, which was episode 102 back in November 2020. I wonder if you can just give us a career overview of yourself, Mike. And let the audience know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I won't go as much detail as the original podcast, but yeah, as you said, I'm a mineral processor by degree from Cardiff University, where I'm currently sitting based, although I have been around the world a few times in between all that. Yeah, just, normal experience into the industry, operating mines, gold mines, diamond mines, base metal operations around the world. Ended up in Australia, where I took a course in innovation and entrepreneurship from Swinburne University that got me interested in, I suppose, new technology. I then joined a technology company, KHD Humboldt Vidag, a German company, who eventually relocated me to the head office in Germany, and where I headed up a division that held all the new technology, high pressure grinding rolls and pneumatic flotation. So after 6 years with them, I really decided that there were some ideas that I had that I'd like to commercialize. I met the co-founder of Maelgwyn Mineral Services in Germany, Dr. Rainer Rimhoff, and he's a guy who can invent to order. So we worked fantastically as a team. I knew what the problems were in the industry, and he could design the equipment and technology to solve those problems. And that's really how we started. And in the last podcast, I think it was 23 years we'd been in business. We now last October celebrated our 25 years anniversary, so still going strong. And with what's happened in the last couple of years with Brexit and with COVID, we're sort of reinvigorated and renewing our direction in that way, which I'd like to talk, quite a bit about today in this podcast.
Yeah. So I just wonder if you can just give us a snap overview of MMS, just so the audience are familiar with the company.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're a growing company. We're based worldwide, but in small operations. So we don't have Cardiff in Wales is our what we call our administrative centre, but there's a handful of people here in this office. We have a subsidiary in South Africa, which is fairly autonomous, and has just moved into a new facility, in fact, and that has about 40 or 50 qualified people working in that department. And then we basically have a whole series of engineers, agents, partners located, and employees located around the world. Our technology, again, I went in detail in the first podcast, but we have the arc and reactor technology, which is a mass transfer device, which has really been accepted by the gold industry principally, and that can add a serious value to the bottom line of gold mining operations. And in parallel to that, we have a flotation technology we call Immerflot reactor flotation. It's a type of pneumatic flotation, which again is completely different to the standard tank flotation that's been around for 120 years now, and that is growing. There's a big growing interest in this type of more efficient flotation, especially in the last few years with ESG issues coming up, environmental social governance issues coming up. We're developing a range of other products and processes that are based around our technologies.
Obviously, we mentioned that over the last few years, a lot of things have been happening. So how have you and the company coped with the effects of both the coronavirus pandemic, Brexit, as you mentioned, since our last episode?
Well, it was no beating around the bush. It's been really difficult. I don't think just for us. I think for all similar size and types of companies, and in that as well. Recently, you add the conflict in Ukraine that has cut out a number of countries that we did have as clients or organizations that had clients. So that the triple whammy of all three has really had a major influence on us. The Brexit, and like everybody else, you could not travel internationally for probably 2 years on and off, mostly on. And when you're trying to sell and market equipment globally, it's very difficult. And so we obviously had to address, like everybody, the use of the internet and media, the likes of Zoom and Teams, to have meetings with clients. But there's only so much you can do over the internet. And in fact, on the other side, although there was a lot of interest, so there were a lot of engineers who normally would be based or visiting mining operations. A lot of them that weren't essential to the actual operation were stuck at home, working from home, and trying to support their operations in that way. I'm talking about metallurgists and senior plant metallurgists. And they were, I suppose, twiddling their fingers. So that is one area that they had a bit more time to look at new technology. So we did get quite a few inquiries and discussions going. However, the mining companies themselves there was just no way they could place orders or change anything. They were struggling to keep their operations going with a limited amount of staff working. And it did make things extremely difficult. We'd sold a flotation plant to Australia just prior, I think, to the various lockdowns. But of course, in Australia, they were really in lockdown, and it was just about impossible to get anybody into the country. In fact, for the mine itself, it was impossible to get people interstate. So they really struggled and delayed commissioning. I mean, it was probably well over a year. They were held back from commissioning their technology simply for the lack of people. And in the end, we had to instruct and do training and commissioning over the internet, which I have to say isn't satisfactory. But that was the way it was. and I'll go in later. We've learned from all this, of course, for the future, but it was, it was very interesting. For Brexit, we have I think well, my co-founder, Dr. Rainer Imhoff, is based in Germany, and so we have a fairly large German presence, which is in the European Union. So, of course, Britain has now left the European Union, and in these last 2 years, we've sort of felt that effect in the UK. So we sub-manufacture a lot of equipment in Europe, in Germany particularly, but also in other countries in Europe. And the bureaucracy now, as a UK-based company, to export equipment out of Europe is quite onerous in the bureaucracy. It still works as in the physical of putting in containers and shipping it, but there's so many forms you now have to fill in. And in fact, we've had to, and this has just happened recently, we've actually formed a standalone company in the European Union, in a European Union country, simply because we needed an export number. It's called an EORI number, that our customs agent was providing on our behalf. But they basically said, look, it's been 18 months we've been doing this. You need to get your own number, because at some stage there'll be an audit and we can't answer the questions of the audit people. So we've had to bite the bullet and do that. And then there's a whole other range of bureaucracy. And in fact, travel. I mean, I've recently returned from Germany myself, and of course, you have to stand in the non-EU passport line. It's a little bit irritating, I have to say, and yeah, it doesn't help. But these are the barriers that are there. And yeah, and as for the war in Ukraine, it's been difficult because prior to it, one of our principal customers for our flotation technology was the state potash producer in Belarus, which has, as you know, the British government, European Union, and America has added to the sanctions. And although it's not specifically detailed, we don't want to be seen to be supporting the war in Ukraine. So as a company, and our shareholders and directors decided we'd have to just till the sanctions were lifted, we would stop selling equipment to Belarus Kali. But also, just before the invasion of Ukraine, we actually signed the contract in Russia, again for a potash producer, and where they paid a down payment to us. But again, we discussed it, shareholders and directors, and we discussed it with the government agencies, and again decided it wasn't in our interests and we couldn't really continue with it. So we actually had to return the funds that they provided and cancel the contract until that time. There are no sanctions, but I can't see that happening in the immediate future. So to all intents and purposes, we've lost a couple of large markets there for our products. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously quite a few challenges that you had there involved.
Yeah, I just on the positive side and all that. So with our gold leach technology, our Archon reactor, to offer support, we actually lease the equipment to the mine site on a monthly rental. Now, one of the problems with Brexit, and mostly in Africa, I would say 90% of our installations are in Africa, and normally we'd be traveling to site every few weeks to refurbish equipment and maintain stock. So obviously we couldn't do that in the lockdowns. But the operations were luckily we'd established these are long-term contracts, and the operating staff on the mine had learned to do all this themselves. So all we had to do was with remote operation, talking to them again on Zoom and Teams. They managed to get by and do all the stuff that was required until the lockdowns, till the countries had opened up again. But of course, the good side, they kept operating the equipment, and they kept paying the monthly rental. So if we were a pure capital equipment sales, so original manufactured goods, I think we'd have really, like others, in fact, would have really struggled. The fact that our revenue probably didn't, well, it didn't drop at all in this period is very good fortune, and really backs up that relationship we have with the clients. So on that basis, and especially for our African division, it worked really well.
Yeah. Obviously, with all these challenges that you had faced, has it changed how MMS
MMS.
actually works?
Yeah, completely, absolutely, completely. We now are set up for working with the internet. So, with Teams and with Zoom, we know how it works. We know, we know how to keep focus. We know how to not bore, if we're talking to clients, not to bore them to tears for having it too long. If we're talking with partners or engineering companies, providing the information in advance before going over it at the meetings. How the setup we have a boardroom here that's set up for conference calls where we have microphones that work. You can hear everybody. And it's all very good for the communications, and it will reduce the travel and workload for many areas, but it certainly doesn't replace that face to face to trying to introduce a client in South America or in North America, Australia to the technology. One of the biggest areas is that in all that, we obviously didn't get access to our technology, and especially as I just mentioned, the lease equipment, the arc and reactors we had at remote sites. So with a little bit of time on our hands, we've got to nail this. So we started developing on-site monitoring, off-site monitoring of this technology. We manage this first in South Africa. We have a few clients in South Africa. So we've tried it out on those operations, to monitor pressures inside the technology, and to just alert the operators to anything untoward. But with all the things going on in our industry to do with artificial intelligence, we really see this as the way forward. I think a lot of them were quite would a little bit wary of off-site people and off-company people monitoring what they were doing. Not necessarily spying, but you probably, if you were a plant manager, you didn't want the world to know that perhaps your equipment or your plant wasn't working to perfection. But I think now they've realized what a benefit it is and how helpful it can be to them, especially with as you know, in the recruitment business, there's a huge shortage, especially in the metallurgical area of mineral processing qualified technical people. So by the monitoring of is offside monitoring and control of the technology, even now, it's we've started down the track, but I think it's going to be a huge business in the future. And it's not just us. There's a whole range of other people looking at this. Not necessarily the robotics that the mining engineers are looking at for underground mining, but certainly the control of things. Yeah, and then again on the same sort of bent, we realize that we can't do everything from central headquarters in the UK or in Europe or in South Africa. So over the last 2 years, we've made a strong effort to acquire, in fact, good employees based in different companies, good agencies, good contract workers, and good agencies, good laboratory companies. So we set off about 18 months ago with the aim of getting somebody in just about all countries. It doesn't always work out. Some have dropped by the wayside. They're not qualified in where we are, or they're not the right type of person, or they have the wrong background. But we do and have established some really good relationships. I'll just name a few, particularly Turkey. We have in fact, an employee based there now who actually works for us in the UK, but is based in Turkey. He works with a Turkish agency company that's doing exceptionally well, understands our technology. We have a similar situation in Indonesia, and it's really the people that are involved in this. We have good partners in Mexico and a metallurgical laboratory that's also acting as an agent. And then in Australia, we've partnered with one of the principal laboratories there in our area, independent metallurgical operations or independent met labs, IMO or IML. That we've placed some of our laboratory technology with them, and they can undertake that test work in Australia without having to ship any samples to South Africa or to us in Europe. So all these things, yeah, it makes life a lot easier and has progressed where we are with with how we operate and how we do things. I still,
Yeah.
I still, I still have to travel quite a bit, but hopefully these guys, and they're fast learners and they're actually very good quality. I think that's the core side of it. And hopefully with the other countries, particularly North America, USA, Canada, we're still on the search for somebody or some company suitable there to look after our interests.
Obviously, as you mentioned, it has been a challenging 2 years, and as you mentioned, you built up some of these partnerships. But as a company, you have sort of managed to expand. So I just wondered if you can just tell us a little bit about some of your expansion plans that have occurred over the last few years.
Yeah, sure. The biggest thing, the biggest area is again to our company in South Africa. I did allude to it that we'd moved into a new premises. We basically outgrew the old premises. We have a metallurgical laboratory and workshops and offices, and we outgrew it. And we knew the lease on those premises were coming up some years ago, so we set about and we've designed a whole new offices, laboratory, and premises in the north of Johannesburg, in the North Riding area. And although it's a lease building on a long-term lease now, we actually designed it with architects, and it is a bespoke. And I was privileged to be there in October of last year to do the opening ceremony of opening the offices and an open day. And I have to say, it's the most amazing facilities. It's space is no object. We have a fantastically well-stocked pilot plant. The hangar, you could fit a 747 Boeing jet in it. It's that big. We have the laboratory facilities, test works, and a separate analytical area, separate workshops, and then amazing offices, and all with a 20-foot high dragon on the front of the building that you can see from the road from miles around. Yeah, and the South African operations, well, I said, is going from strength to strength. So since the pandemic, I think we've signed another three companies and operations for the technology, the Archon reactor, and the processes associated with it. Again, on lease terms that we monitor and look after things. And yeah, and it's just going from strength to strength there. We also, our technologies, we've always believed is applicable more to than just mineral processing, and has applications in the environmental areas. And we were fortunate to join up with a company, Mine Environmental Management, led by a guy called Steve Pearce. And well, they're actually based also in Wales, but in North Wales. They have offices. They've set up an office now in Southeast Wales, but they're environmental engineers, and they're very clever, know the processes and the chemistry of water treatment, mine water treatment, and other areas. Whereas we have the equipment side of the technology. So what we did, was just over 2 years ago, we formed a company, Cambrian Environmental Services. It's a 50-50 joint venture, principally to develop a process for the active treatment of mine waste, to reduce, to take out heavy metals and reduce acid mine drainage and that areas. Just going back a bit, a lot of work has been done into what they call passive treatment, and that's really building wetlands around mines to treat runoff water from tailings dam that contains dissolved metals. So this is ancillary to that, because those areas, they're like a scrubbing process, but the process we're trying to develop will actually take out the metals and process them so they can be used as a positive cash flow and hopefully pay for the whole waste treatment process. We received a grant from the Natural Resources Wales, which looks after all the various old mines in Wales, and there's a lot of historical old lead zinc mining here going on for a couple of centuries, in fact. And there are some issues of some very beautiful areas of Wales that the waterways have been a little bit polluted with the likes of heavy metals, cadmium and arsenic and things like that. So we have a grant and are developing that process in conjunction with those people. But we hope it can be expanded globally and can be used worldwide. We do have interest with mining operations in Canada and Australia already, who are watching what we're doing. So that's one area we're looking at on the environmental side. But also, again, with our technology, there's the whole talk about carbon and the carbon footprint, and we're looking at carbon sequestration in mine waste. And again, with our technology, provided by the lead of the chemists and the technical people from Mine Environmental Management, who are world experts in this, we think we can come up with some process to sequester carbon within mine tailings and mine waste, which will substantially reduce the global carbon footprint, especially of mines, but hopefully of the whole environment. So that's in, I'd say, the early stage. We're in the laboratory test work side of things, but we do have some great hopes for it all. So yeah, those are a couple of areas. And then the third one, there's the third one out of four, is we basically decided that some of us here in the organizations are getting long in the tooth. You reach a certain age and you just sit there on your laurels and stuff, and you think, oh, do we have to think of anything new? But we decided, no, there's got to be some succession planning. And on that basis, we've gone out and recruited some very clever engineers and scientists to our organization. So a couple of doctors with PhDs, one based in Norway, one based in Freiburg, who are thinking about the next step and the next technology. And then we've recruited some young engineers. Again, because of COVID, they're based around the world. So we have a couple who work for us in the UK, but are based currently in South Africa. We have an engineer who's based in France, he's our engineering manager, in fact, who works for us. So really, we've gone out, and it's been difficult, as you know, in the recruitment area, but it's through people and word of mouth of people we know, we've managed to attract some very high caliber people to the organization. And we did this because when, again, having a bit of time in the lockdown and not traveling, we looked at what was going on in the industry, and especially the mining side of things, where they're looking to mechanize with robots and artificial intelligence. And in the processing side, we're not that advanced. We're actually pretty dumb processing. The flotation process we talk about, it hasn't really changed in 120 years. It's still putting material into a big tank with a big stirrer and adding reagents and hoping it floats. it's quite an inefficient process, that does leave, 5-10% of the material left in the tailings. And when you add that up, that's a considerable amount. So what we're looking at is, really improving processing inefficiencies. And yeah, we've have some quite unique ideas, and we're looking to develop those. But we need some quality people to do that. It's a little bit beyond our mature people's intelligence, or probably more energy levels than intelligence, but to do that, and that's where we're looking to go. So this is why we've collaborated, and in particular with a research institute in Germany, the HIF, Helmholtz Institute Freiburg, part of the Helmholtz research group in Germany. They have fantastic facilities in Freiburg, in the old eastern Germany, an old historic mining area, and put through a lot of it's a teaching university, but mostly masters and PhD students, and there's an awful lot going on there. And so, in fact, we've taken offices and renting some laboratory space there to do this pure research into increasing the efficiencies of minerals extraction. And I would add that we're looking at what's going on with of the SpaceX and the race to space, and people who have these ideas about mining on Mars and mining asteroids. And well, I'm not qualified to say if it's going to happen in the near future or the long-term future, or if ever. But it certainly is a challenging environment to process minerals in that type of environment. So we're looking at that for inspiration. What would you do? How would you actually extract on Mars? And that can be, increasing efficiencies. That can be related back to any developments we do on this planet. So yeah, exciting times. I suppose it's the most areas we've looked at, new and different and varied technologies since we started 25 years ago. It's all really down to the change of the industry to do with what's happened with the pandemic, but also the acceptance that all mining companies you'll see have to do the ESG side of things, environmental, social governance, which apart from the energy requirements, water requirements, looking after the local inhabitants around their mines, not polluting the area, all those things. It's also increasing the efficiency of separation, not leaving, not putting too much into the tailings and into the waste. So that's the big input from their side. So taking it all together, I think it's quite exciting times for our industry.
Yeah. So what about some of the other projects in some of the other areas of the world that you've been involved in, if there's any that you want to highlight?
Well, just we've so in the pandemic we started discussing with clients about placing our technology there, but of course it wouldn't happen until the end of the pandemic. But now, thankfully, for probably half a year, we've been opened up, and in fact China's just really opened up, although I have to say I'm not sure I'd want to go there just yet. So in that we've basically received now some orders. So for our flotation equipment, we have some really interesting projects in Turkey for a flotation plant, and then in Azerbaijan for a flotation plant with one of the mid-level copper producers that's looking to grow into the next tier of producers. It's a London listed company, and we're very excited to be working with them. They're very professional in the way they go about their geology and their mine plan. And now we're hoping to, we're partnering them with in the processing side of things with their operation. And where the plant it's an expansion of an existing operation. The the technology's in manufacture at the moment, and we're hoping to commission there in a few months' time. So we're very excited by that. A similar couple of areas, in fact, in Turkey, which is, as I said before, with the good agents and the good people there, there's a lot of mining and development work going on in Turkey at the moment. And in fact, Turkey as a what do you call it, a springboard into the other stands, let's say the Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, those sort of areas, rather than the support from Russia, which, as we've said, is a bit difficult now. You know, they're basically moving in there in a quite a large way, the engineering companies. So it's a good place to be based, Turkey. And well, hopefully next month I'll have an extended visit there. And then with our Aachen technology, we're very close to some interesting developments in the silver side of things in a number of countries. We do have a couple of contracts that have actually been signed, but we have some bigger ones in the pipeline that are, just, the legalities of such contracts are going on. But we're pretty hopeful and pretty much exciting that's going to happen. In the meantime, the game with the Aachen technology for gold leaching, we have an operation in Indonesia where they've had some issues, and we've actually had a trial there with one of our reactors for the last year, and it's on a short-term lease basis, and it really has demonstrated itself in the increase in recovery and a major reduction in reagent consumption. They had to be, not going too much into the technical details, our Aachen technology adds oxygen to pulp and is a high shear and causes some shear reactions there. In their operation, they had to add additional peroxide to increase the oxygen levels. And as soon as they started the Aachen reactor up, they didn't need any more peroxide, which was basically about half of their reagent consumptions. So even on the reagent consumptions alone, it was a really good plus for them, let alone the large increase in recovery. So they've now signed permanent contracts for long-term leases of that and other equipment as well. So it's exciting times, and we have quite a large pipeline of various sales and leases going ahead as we speak and in for the coming 2023.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Obviously, being involved in the technology space, would you say the technology advancements over the last few years has been sort of increased compared to other years, just because of what's happened in the world and effect it has had on businesses?
No, us as technology people and other companies, there's some very major metallurgical supply companies around here, multinationals around the world, and also a lot of mid-tier and a lot of small companies like ourselves, where I think our focus has been on that. They're just really surviving, getting the sales in, making sure that the sales doesn't drop or the profits don't drop. But the industry, and that's the mining companies, you can see they've been demanding. The status quo is not acceptable. We want to improve the process. You can't stay where you are. So the big guys, the FL Smiths of this world and the Metso Outotec, they've acknowledged this, and they're making all the noises that yes, right, and they're investing in their technology, developing it. I think FLS has I think they call it zero carbon, or there's a buzzword for it, but we're all starting that now. It hasn't actually led to any particular innovation or change of what we've done before, but I think in the coming years, I think it's all going to happen, from big to small people, because it's actually demanded by and it's the major players. It's the Anglo Americans, the Rio Tintos, the BHPs of this world, the Vale. they realize they can't sit still, especially related to the ESG requirements. Their shareholders are asking them, what are you doing? Why is your recovery so low? Why are you leaving valuable material in the tailings? Things like that. So that's the pull, not necessarily from the new guys. They just want to get their mines into operation in any shape or form. But certainly the big guys are looking at what they can do and how they can manage the environment around them. So yeah, it's a good place for us all, I think.
You're a director and an immediate past chairman of SEEK, the Coalition for Minerals Efficiency. We didn't discuss this in the podcast that we recorded 2 years ago. I just wonder if you can give us an oversight of what SEEK is and what are their objectives.
Well, yes, and thanks for the opportunity to do this. It's probably a bit of a plug for something that is probably the most valuable thing to our industry globally. SEEK was an idea thought up. Well, it came into fruition in 2011 by some clever people in Australia who realized that we are using mineral processing uses so much energy to grind and crush and grind and blast minerals for the extraction process, and there's been some studies done on it, and mineral processing uses something like 4 to 5% of the global world's electricity in generating that liberation. So these people, and the idea came from Liz Lewis Gray of a Gecko company. They're a medium-sized equipment company similar to ours, and she wanted to know, well, what are we doing as people in the industry? So she talked to some to some people she knew in that industry from the mining side and from the research side. A guy, Professor Tim Napier-Munn from the University of Queensland, and they formed SEEK. SEEK then was the coefficient of eco-efficient comminution. And it was basically just it's a charity, it's not for profit organization, really just to educate and give information out there to the industry of how best to operate the equipment you have or design new equipment and installations to reduce. The initial side was to reduce the energy in getting to that liberation of minerals. And I was invited shortly after that, I think it was about 2012, to come on board as a director. So there's a volunteer board of directors. I think currently there's 8 of us worldwide, based all over the world, just to oversee and and give direction to that vehicle. It needed some input and some funding. So we went cap in hand to some of the major, some equipment suppliers and mining companies. And currently we have a whole range of industry sponsors from, Tech, Molycop, Eries, FLS, Asenco, Centara Gold, a whole range of industry sponsors who pay a yearly sponsorship fee, which allows us to employ a small number of staff to generate that information. In the early days, we provided in fact, before webinars came up, just conferences and information on the website about what technology was around and what papers had been written by peer people and peer review work into how you actually reduce your energy footprint. Then we developed that into, we can do a bit more here. So we developed what we call the energy curves. And this is where mining operations provide us confidentially their energy input of all the equipment they have in the process plant and certain other criteria. And we can then input that into a database, a confidential database that generates where they sit on the cost curve of energy requirements for their particular material. So the big ones were copper processing and gold processing. And I think, in fact, copper processing, I think we've captured over 85% of all the world copper operations. And what they can see is where their actual mine is, where it sits on this energy curve as to how much energy they use compared with how much they produce, their throughput or their copper production. So only they know where it is and what it is, but they can see, if they come down, if they can work to come down that energy curve, they can see, where they are and how much they can increase. And this has been very valuable to a number of these major operations. It gives them something to work to. So that happened and went on for a number of years. But then we thought, well, this is such a good thing. We can expand all this by looking at water as well, and water efficiencies. So now we're actually we're including water consumption, and we have some new initiatives going on now. So we're actually working with it's really the next stage, and we're just about releasing now the Global Water Initiative, and this involves the University of British Columbia and the Sustainable Minerals Institute and SMI ICE in Chile, and in fact many others who are funding this to research again in a similar fashion to energy, where we can save water, how we can recycle water, how can we reduce water consumption on these operations, and really to develop further, rather than just water and energy. Let's just look at minerals efficiency, and increasing how the efficiency that we extract minerals at reducing costs and reducing the footprint of how we extract. So what we actually did in the end of last year, we rebranded Seek International, and now we simply call Seek International the Coalition of Minerals Efficiency. I've been, so the first the chair before me was Joe Pease formerly of Glencore and Mount Isa Mines in the operations, but he's been a consultant for Mineralis for a number of years. I took over from him in the chair and was chair of the organization for 4 years. I stepped down at the end of last year, and now Mark Allen, based in Perth, he's an energy consultant. He's now stepped into the chair. But what we did manage to do, we managed to recruit a new president and included as an executive director, and this is Janine Herzig. Janine is a mineral processor, but she's former past president of the AusIMM in Australia, and many other institutions, in fact. She's now works part-time as staff as the president, but is also a director. She's given us a huge impetus, and now we've recruited, she has 2 or 3 assistants to help us expand the whole operation. But again, I said we're all really there sponsored by the industry. So I would certainly call on anybody listening to this from a mining or equipment organization to have a look at Seek. Most people, I think, in the industry do know what Seek is and what's it about, but really we do need the sponsorship to keep going and survive and get the message out there. As I said, it's a completely charity, it's a voluntary organization, not for profit. We have Anglo-American sponsors, Osenco, Centaur, as I've mentioned, Hudbay Minerals, Magato, Maptech, Metso Autotech, Molycorp, Newmont Corporation, SCM Minerals, Tech Resources, and then universities and Wheaton Precious Metals. So we have some named organization sponsors sponsoring, but really we do need the support of other organizations to, we're representing the industry globally, to organizations outside the industry who are watching what we're doing as a mining group and a processing group, and how we're really trying to do our bit to improve the planet. And yeah, Rob, that was my sales pitch for Seek.
Yeah, and
Our strap word is seek the future.
Yeah, and we'll include some of that information in the show notes so people can access that and look into it.
That's great. Thanks for that.
So lastly, concluding, just wondered what the outlook is for MMS for the next sort of 12 to 18 months. Obviously, you've gave us an in-depth analysis of what you have been doing over the last 2 years. What's the next 12 to 18 months going to look like?
Well, we're flat out. We've reached our limit with the internal people we have. We are looking to expand with more qualified people, and it's not easy, as again there's very few people out there with enough experience. I mean, there's a lot of older guys like ourselves. Well, there's some older guys like ourselves who have a wealth of experience, but then a period, I suppose, 10, 20 years after us, there's a gap where many that were industry left the industry, and others, just disappeared. And there's those people with, say, 10 years experience, very difficult to find. And that's the sort of people we're looking for. It's easier to recruit newer graduates because there is, some people coming through now, but it's the experienced people. So really, our outlook is maintaining where we are in our sales. We can't expand that too quickly because we'll get caught out, basically. However, with the research and development side of things, we're going to use that time where we do have the people, the ideas, and the resources, in fact, to investigate and take that to the next level. So that's really is going to be our major focus for expansion. Okay, continue with what we're doing now without getting caught out by expanding too quickly. Taking contracts that we can't deal with. However, on the areas where we do have the resources, in the academic side, in the research side, in the thinking side, advance that to get to the next product. And then in parallel to that, obviously look for funding to fund that type of expansion. We realize we can't do this on our own. And there's partners out there, there's people in the industry, other organizations that are looking for the same things we're looking at. So I'm sure much of it will be with joint venture partners and external funding and take things to the next level. So that's really where we see our growth and our future for the long term, to Mars and the 21st century.
Yeah, no, I understand. Well, Mike, really appreciate your time and give us an overview of Maelgwyn and what you've been doing over the last, obviously, 2 years. And obviously, you've got big plans for the future over the next, obviously, few years. If our audience wants to reach out to you, if they've got any questions that they want to ask, how can they go about doing that? How can they follow you? What social media platforms are you on?
Yeah, we're very much, across the board. We have our website. I mean, maelgwyn.com. I'm sure you can find it. We're the only company that's spelled like that. So whatever you type in close to Maelgwyn, it's going to come out as us. Just look for the red dragon. But we're actually, and I didn't mention it, but yeah, with the lockdown, we've really expanded social media, especially with LinkedIn. So we encouraged all our people to be very active with their own profile in LinkedIn, and with our company profile, the Maelgwyn Mineral Services, and our South African company, the Turkish operations, the Indonesian, they're all posted in LinkedIn. I'm sure anybody in the industry will have seen all this. So you can follow us on LinkedIn, the website. You can contact me direct. I'm sure you're going to put all the details in the notes of the podcast. Yeah, and we're very happy and pleased to talk with anybody and everybody about partnerships and where they want to go with their technology and their operation.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Mike, really appreciate your time and give us an overview of obviously Maelgwyn. Very obviously detailed, and looks like your company are going further and further and helping a lot of companies with obviously with their mineral processing. So obviously, wish you luck for your obviously continued success. And those that are listening, as always, appreciate if you can share this episode with others around the world. And obviously, if you know people within the processing side, please, even if you're a mine engineer or geologist and you listen to this, please share this with people in the mineral processing so they can get to understand a little bit about Maelgwyn, what they do, because it can certainly help operations or companies that are going into operations with some of their mineral processing and some of the technologies that these guys are developing. So, as always, appreciate your continued support and please keep sharing this episode. And until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.